This is CJ back at it again with the GOAT Sports Talk. Of course, there's news today, which is June 20th, 2017, a couple of days before the draft, that talks have stalled with Cleveland Cavaliers with their ability to possibly trade for Paul George or Jimmy Butler. And of course, as we know that the GM was recently let go before his contract was going to be up at the end of this month. So, pretty much, as you know, many GMs' contract runs all the way through the end of the draft. A lot of times, when you have a loss in the finals, your owners usually try and make, moves, and they start panicking and they don't know how to actually handle their business. And you fired, a GM who I would say relatively did pretty well. He made some moves. Of course, during the middle of the season or towards the end of the season before the trade deadline to get a couple of pieces. Of course, we know about Deron Williams, which is probably the best that he could get at the time. I know that Cleveland was looking to get, other players that could have been better backups or probably been better two-way players than what Deron Williams is providing for Cleveland. And then, of course, we know that they scooped up as well Andrew Bogut, and Andrew Bogut ended up being injured in less than a minute. The Carl Korver pickup was good. They did need another shooter, and he did provide some floor spacing for them. But there's other glaring aspects of that team that, we'll probably discuss as time moves forward. One of those being right now is that Cleveland is just not the spot for a young player in their prime. And that's pretty much what it comes down to. When you're talking about Jimmy Butler and Paul George, you're talking about, they're around 27 years old, which is basically, right in their prime. That's really when a player who's been in the league for a few years, you're still physically there, especially if you haven't had any injuries. This is like a perfect time for them to actually try and be in a place where they want to be in the course of their prime, especially with them being able to, possibly win championships. And even though they could win championships with Cleveland Cavaliers, at this particular point in their career, it's just not a sexy destination. And this is the thing that a lot of people do not understand about, this whole thing with the NBA. When you're talking about playing 82 games in a season, most of the year you're not going to be where you live maybe in the offseason. Of course, in the offseason you can live wherever you want, but for many of these guys, they want to be somewhere full time in a place that's popping. That was the reason why Miami was such a hot destination, for players, and will be in the future as they try to rebuild their team up. But then, Chicago is also considered, a major city in the world. Of course, we know that they have issues, with crime. But other than that, and a lot of Chicago is considered, Chicago is one of the top cities on the planet. It's a world-class city, even with its issues, from a crime perspective, which is regulated just to certain parts of town mostly. But, it also has a historic franchise with 6 championships. You're talking about Eastern Conference Finals appearances that are, you can get players to go to Chicago, you can definitely get players to go to Chicago, and Jimmy Butler is basically saying in so many words he'd rather stay in Chicago and be part of their rebuilding than to actually have an opportunity to win an NBA championship in the next 1 to 2 years, because his contract is actually ending in the the end of the 2019 season, and he would have, if he were to be traded to Cleveland, you're talking about a couple of years of him being able to possibly be in finals appearances, which he's never been in, and to possibly win a championship or two in those 2 years. That's what he would potentially have. And then if he wanted to, he can go sign anywhere else he would want. But that just shows you, that Cleveland is just not a sexy destination. I guarantee you if that same type of trading was going on for a team that was in the running, that was in a more sexier market, he would go for it at this particular time. Now, we do know that they also were pursuing Paul George, okay? Now, Paul George has already stated that he wants to be in LA. In fact, his agent also said the same. So, at the end of the day, Paul George is going to make it to LA regardless, because one, he has the ability to wait till free agency regardless of where he's traded this upcoming season or whether he stays in Indiana this upcoming season. In 2018, he could sign with whoever he wants, and that team more than likely will be, one of the two LA teams, and he prefers, it looks like, the Lakers. He does have a good relationship with Kobe, and I think even for him, man, and sometimes you got to assess the personality of players, man. Being in Indiana, a lot of times, players are overlooked. It's not a big time market, it's an overlooked market, and a guy like him, he wants to be on the scene, man. I mean, sometimes you can tell that certain players, man, they want to be in the spotlight. They want to be out there, in a place where they could be around stars. I mean, that's a part of the attraction of playing for the Los Angeles Lakers, man. Is the fact that courtside you're going to have, other athletes, and entertainers, and beautiful women that are going to be consistently at these games, and that's just what it is. I mean, the guy's 27 years old. He's not married, of course. He has, I think, maybe a child or two, but at the end of the day, man, he's trying to be out there, man. A lot of these players are trying to be out there. And I think this could influence LeBron to also end up leaving Cleveland as well. Now, there are things that Cleveland could do to make themselves competitive this year to compete for a title without even, potentially having to move Kevin Love. That's something that we'll definitely discuss as far as what kind of changes they can make if they were to keep Kevin Love in order to be more competitive next season against the, potential, NBA Finals, finalists would be, from the West would be Golden State Warriors. And so we're going to look into that as well. But for the most part, man, Cleveland is just not the place for free agents unless you're really an older player trying to chase a ring and you're willing to go there, or you're willing to be like a one-year rental, maybe like midway through the season. You get traded there and you're competing for a ring. You go get yourself a nice, condo to rent, in downtown Cleveland or whatever, where it's popping, and then explore your options as a free agent that following summer. So I mean, that's pretty much what it is. We'll definitely be looking further on into this issue with Cleveland and seeing what they can do moving forward.